Boom. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. It is a special TMSM episode number seven. We are catching up on the NBA and MLB because we are way too entranced in football. Um, Last year, me and Devin had better schedules. We were able to do in the morning more. So when we wanted to catch up on basketball and baseball, we could. This season, not so much. We've been deep into the NFL, and our fantasy is taking years off of our lives. So now that we have some time today, we figure we catch up on some basketball and a little bit of baseball. There's not too much going on there, but we'll recap it anyways. How Rob Manfred's a clown and how nobody gets along in baseball.
Just be friends, guys.
We are we're happy fantasy season's over, that's for sure.
Dude, I got one more week. After this
Never
Sunday,
mind.
I'm freed from my shackles. I can officially just not set an alarm for 8:30 in the morning, setting my lineups and just staring at them until 10 a.m. But
Dude, that was me when I was working night shift. I would go to bed at like 5 a.m. and set an alarm for 9:50 and get up and look real quick. No O's. All right, cool. We're good. Back to
Yep.
sleep.
exactly.
So before we get into everything, let's get into our friends over at Manscaped, our sponsored for today's stream. Look, we're in a day and age where you gotta clean up your stuff. It's as simple as that.
We are in the age of men's hygiene, and if you're not with it, you better get with the times. Manscaped is a men's grooming company. They sell men's grooming essentials, as I'm sure you know. Austin and I found out to send us the performance package, and in that package we got the Lawnmower 4.0, their newest state of the art men's body grooming and just men's body grooming trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0, the Weed Whacker, their brand new nose hair trimmer, along with the Crop Preserver and their the Crop Preserver, and I forget the name of the other one. So it's a ball toner and a ball deodorant. They send out some magic
Those
masks.
things are great.
Amazing products. And so with a performance package, you're getting the bulk of the best products that they offer. But in my experience so far, the Lawnmower 4.0 has been an absolute game changer in my grooming tendencies. It's got a ceramic coated blade, so it helps cut down on cuts. Just imagine shaving with the sleek, well-designed, and optimized trimmer that makes shaving time your favorite time in the bathroom. And I know what you're talking about. That first time whenever you wake up, you start scrolling Twitter before you brush your teeth. Like, that's a great time in the bathroom. But Manscaped can help change that for you. They've engineered it to be the ultimate groin and body trimmer. It's just focused on the intelligent functionality and just incredibly comfortable grooming experiences. Their fourth generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade, as I mentioned before. It's designed to reduce grooming accidents because of their advanced skin safe technology. And I personally feel way more confident in my shaving now with that ceramic blade. It allows you to trim at different lengths. I don't know if people do that. I personally don't, but if you want to get creative, the ability is there. To each their own. That you got four different lengths for those grooming blades that come with the Lawnmower 4.0. But yeah, basically use code TMSM at checkout for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. It's available to everyone that wants to use it. If you want to step up your men's grooming game, Manscaped's the way to go. I started using it, and I don't think Austin and I have looked back since.
Hey, you're talking to somebody who has sensitive skin. Don't blame me. It's my mom's fault. But it works for me. I'm not massively irritated afterwards. The deodorant's great. The toner's great. It's, you put on lotion on your hands because you want your hands to be soft. Why can't your whole body be soft? There you go. It's as simple as that. So use TMSM worldwide. Just not the United States. Our Canadian friends, our everybody friends. Wherever it needs to go, it'll go.
And in a world where it's so frustrating to just deal with all of the cords in our lives, you look at my desk setup, you will see enough cords to get lost. But luckily with the Lawnmower 4.0, the only cord you got to worry about is the one that plugs into your wireless charging base. You set that somewhere in your bathroom, keep it plugged in. Whenever you need to charge, boom, right on there, will charge wirelessly. No port to plug into, just set it and forget it. like everything should be, including your fantasy lineup.
There you go. Just like start your studs. Your stud being the Lawnmower 4.0.
Precisely. But don't forget, use code TMSM at checkout for 20% off and free shipping worldwide at manscaped.com. And a special thanks to Manscaped for partnering with us.
Yeah. So now that we've talked about our clean balls, let's talk about some clean ball out in Chicago. The Chicago Bulls are atop the Eastern Conference at 25-10 after finishing 31-41 last season. So they're already reaching their 13-4 at home, 12-6 on the road. They're on an 8-game win streak. Devin, what are the Bulls doing right? How do they have such a big turnaround already?
The Chicago Bulls tampered in the offseason, but it's the good kind of tampering where they took a second round draft pick, which shouldn't matter with how they're performing. They got their guys in an offseason where there was not really a whole lot of big fish to fry in terms of free agents. A lot of the stuff was like restricted free agency. The Bulls made moves. They went out and got DeMar DeRozan, who has been in the NBA's purgatory in San Antonio for the better part of the last 3 to 4 years. And over that time, post-Kawhi trade, DeMar DeRozan has been one of the more consistently consistent offensive players in the league. He always had a nice mid-range jumper, and he could always get to the cup. But he's extended his range over the last couple of years to a point where now we're seeing in Chicago where he's going to be this 3-level scorer for a really competitive team. And the difference between DeMar in San Antonio in regards to DeMar in Chicago is the supporting cast in Chicago is a definitive upgrade. The Bulls made a move last year around the trade deadline. They moved Wendell Carter, and I forget who the second piece in the deal was. But they flipped Wendell Carter to the Magic in a deal to acquire Nikola Vucevic. At the time, I wasn't sure how I felt about it because Vuk isn't really a defensive stalwart. He's more of an offensive piece to help you score more points. I digress. The Bulls then go on. Last year, they drafted Patrick Williams, but in this offseason, they brought on guys like Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball, who are good defenders. There's no other way to code it. Lonzo Ball is a great distributor. His shots improved every single year. Alex Caruso was the heartbeat for these Lakers teams over the last couple of years. Regardless of what his averages were, the effort and energy he brings off of the bench is paramount to any lineup. You pair Alex Caruso with a guy like Kobe White on the bench, who was a lottery pick 2 years ago, who's a little bit of an afterthought now with Lonzo and Caruso in the show. But Kobe White is a solid offensive piece. And then you've got Patrick Williams, who's improving year in and year out. You've got DeRozan, Lonzo, and that's not even mentioning the guy that's honestly the outlier for this season. Zach LaVine is in a contract year, and Zach LaVine has been the guy in Chicago since I believe 2018, 2019. Seriously. And he's due for a max contract. So I'm excited to see where the Bulls take this season and if they can actually consistently move forward in the 1 to 3 seed. Because if they can, I think it makes a compelling argument to re-signing Zach LaVine at that total. And as the salary cap continues to go up and up and up, barring any more COVID setbacks in terms of the salary cap structure and revenue deals, I think the Bulls would be amiss to not re-sign Zach LaVine after this year. Because the core is relatively young. LaVine's in his mid to late 20s. DeRozan's a little over 30. Vuk is a little over 30. But Lonzo, Caruso, Kobe White, everybody besides DeRozan and Vuk are pretty much on that same trajectory. And I don't think DeRozan's going to age out poorly like, I wouldn't even say Westbrook or John Wall because injuries have derailed their careers. But DeMar DeRozan is more than just elite athleticism getting him his points and stats. So I think the Bulls are in a very advantageous spot this year. And I think the biggest thing for them is not letting this year cloud what they want to do over the next 4. But all in all, one of the biggest surprises in the NBA to start this season. Like DeRozan was canned over the offseason, or the basically they did a poll of NBA GMs in front offices, and they did a poll to say what was the worst free agent signing out of all of them in the offseason. DeMar DeRozan ranked number 1. And he's making people eat their just desserts this season so far. He has been transcendent.
If it makes you feel any better, the full trade was Wendell Carter, Otto Porter Jr., and 2 first-round picks head over to the Magic, while Vucevic and Al Farouk Aminu.
Al Farouk, yeah,
thank you.
That was the full trade. Well, Otto Porter's on the Golden State Warriors now, so they really just moved Wendell Carter and a couple draft picks, which in the NBA, draft picks are great, but if you're trying to contend, you go for players.
Yeah.
Point blank and period, especially whenever you're a team like the Bulls. If they're going to be like this over the next 3-4 years, those draft picks are going to be way less in value.
Okay. At number 2 and 3, we have kind of who we expect there to be, the Nets and the Bucks. Even without Kyrie Irving, the Nets continue to play well. I don't think anybody's generally really surprised by that. Kyrie plays road games, right? He can't play home games.
Well, he played his first game yesterday. His
So
first
there
game
you
on the
go.
year was yesterday.
And they
It's
won, so there you go.
it's same old for the Nets and Bucks. Like if we're gonna be honest, or if we're gonna be honest, this is how the East should shake out, in my opinion. The Bulls are a surprise, but the Nets and the Bucks are the class of this conference. They literally were in a bar fight in the Eastern Conference semis last year, and if Kevin Durant has a half size smaller on his shoe, they probably win the championship last year. Um, I'm surprised at how well the Nets have been playing without Kyrie, not because Kyrie is a huge Kyrie's an all-star caliber point guard, all NBA type dude whenever he's healthy and actually playing. James Harden's been playing himself into shape all year, and Kevin Durant's just been Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant
Yep.
arguably is the best player on the planet in terms of what he's doing on the court 2 years after an Achilles tear. Um, the Nets are really good. They have 3 of the top 25 guys on the planet any given year. And whenever you have that and a coach in Steve Nash who doesn't necessarily have to coach all the time, he just has to say, hey, go out there,
Seriously.
exercise the game plan. And if something weird comes up, I'll bring somebody off the bench. But this is a team that has not only those top 3 players, but you're looking at a roster that's featuring, you've got Patty Mills joined in the offseason. He was a great bench piece for those Spurs teams over the years. Joe Harris, while he may be overpaid, is still one of the better three-point shooters in the league. You've got some very good players in terms of just utility and value. You got James Johnson, who's a perennial just NBA talent. Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge are still on the roster. Regardless if you want to call them washed, they are still NBA veterans that know how to play the game. Paul Millsap joined the fray in the offseason as well. They are a prime candidate for any buyout guys this season. They are a championship destination until Durant, James Harden, and Kevin Durant are gone. So they have the ability to make moves and they have the ability to add into this core because whenever you have these 3, it's a lot easier to operate upon the fringes with everybody else. And that's not even bringing up Nick Claxton, who literally killed the Lakers or put the nail in the coffin for the Lakers on Christmas Day. They've got a good mix of veterans. They got some young talent and some just shooting that I think pairs well for any playoff run that they can see themselves in. And Durant's one of the best defenders on the planet whenever he's fully going.
Yeah. Bucks in the Heat, 3 and 4, 76ers at 5. I've seen they were struggling early in the season. You got the whole Ben Simmons thing going on. They've won 5 in a row, though. They're kind of getting back into it. They don't play too well at home. They're 7 and 8 at home, but 14 and 8 on the road. Ben Simmons has to go at some point. I don't know where. I don't care per se. I think they kind of had a monkey on their back, when they first came in with this whole thing and having to deal with it. We're not too in love. I don't think anybody's really too in love with Doc Rivers still being there. I mean, I don't know a better candidate at the moment, but Doc Rivers continues to have that kind of chip on his shoulder where he can't get to the promised land for his team. Luckily for them, they're playing well lately. A surprise at 6, you got the Cavs at 21 and 17. Kind of one of the teams you kind of expected to be bad, maybe.
Cleveland's really weird. Cleveland had this problem last year of they've been stockpiling assets. If we look at the roster, this is one of the younger rosters in the league, and I think it's a good thing that they're so young. We look at the Cavs roster. We've got a team that features. So Kevin Love is the resident veteran on this team. He signed that big deal because Dan Gilbert was like, "Oh, fuck you, LeBron. I'm gonna sign this guy." Rubio is out for the year, but if we're looking at their core of guys, I don't think I see maybe more than 2 people that are actually over 30 years old. Like obviously Rondo, Ed Davis, Kevin Love, and I think that's about it. You've got a roster featuring Evan Mobley, who's going to win Rookie of the Year. He's arguably the most impressive rookie day one since maybe Anthony Davis or Zion. Like Zion was impressive because he's just so physically dominant, but the skill
Yeah.
that Mobley has at his size is absolutely insane. You've got Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, Lauri Markkanen, who they got for a steal because Chicago just wasn't using him properly, in my opinion. Isaac Okoro, who would have been like a top 5 pick if we went back into his draft in terms of just the defensive versatility and just ability of himself. Cedi Osman is still in Cleveland. There is a lot of key young pieces. Jarrett Allen is in Cleveland now. He got moved from the Rockets for like a pack of cigarettes, it seemed like. Cleveland has been very efficient in the moves that they've made. And in doing so, they have this really spry, young, plucky team that is actually competing in a way that I didn't expect them to. They may be aided in Colin Sexton being out for a chunk of this year just because the two smaller guards operating all the time leaves you liable defensively, especially with the guys like Sexton and Garland. They're both under like 6'4", and Garland's like almost under 6 foot. They're very small. They're smaller guards, so it's harder to defend at the NBA level with those smaller guards. But Cleveland's been a breath of fresh air, and I hope they can at least hold out and finish as a 6 to 8 seed. Because if they can make the playoffs, they could be really annoying to play.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those type of teams where it's like, man, I feel like we could take them on, but they're just kind of that thorn in your side that can really surprise you in a 7-game series.
And then back to the Sixers real quick. Because the thing with the Sixers for me is Joel Embiid is the top 3 center in basketball. He's the second best center in basketball behind Jokic. But they have a real problem in roster construction. Daryl Morey, bless his little heart for all he did in Houston and all the moves he's been able to make over time. He's gonna have to bite the bullet with Ben Simmons, but I don't even think Ben Simmons is the big problem here. Ben Simmons is a next level player whenever he's fully healthy, and to discount him because he can't shoot is it's just the wrong way to evaluate him. Ben Simmons is a defensive player of the year candidate, and he can get to the rim almost at will whenever he wants to. Tobias Harris is the elephant in the room. This is a guy that's set to make $36 million this year, and I'll look up his stats right now. But if we're looking at max level dudes, there are definitely tiers to it. But Tobias Harris, in terms of the output they have gotten from him during this deal, it's just not on par with what you would need it to be to justify the $36 million. Because he's averaging, slide this over, this season he is averaging a total of 18.4 points per game, down from the 19.5 he put up in Philly last year, and that's down.
Hey man, that's $2 million a point.
He should be scoring more, especially with Simmons outside of the offense.
Yeah.
He's not the second best player for a championship team. And if the Sixers don't make a move, they're not going to be a definitive contender because Embiid can beat up on any center in the East, but teams will just say, okay, Embiid beat us. And if the rest of the crew can't get with it, then it's going to be a major problem. I like Tyrese Maxey.
It's also kind of at the point where the Sixers, if they were to trade Ben Simmons, they need people. They don't need picks. They're in a win now type of moment. They need to add pieces to their team, not picks down the line. They're not the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that's probably a tough thing too, where you're, trying to ship Ben Simmons somewhere and you're like, well, I need these players. Like, we'll give you picks. It's like, okay, well, picks don't help me now, and I need help now.
Well, the thing is, the city of Philadelphia, wants to have their cake and eat it. This is a fan base and franchise that literally shit all over Ben Simmons last postseason because he wasn't being super aggressive. And I understand the frustration, but you tanked any value he was going to hold in the trade market over this offseason whenever the coach sold him out and Embiid sold him out. The fan base hated him. Ben Simmons is an asset, but Daryl Morey wants Damian Lillard and some picks. And he wants to move Simmons basically player for player with some star players in the league. And Ben Simmons does not return the same value as Damian Lillard. Not saying Simmons is a worse player. They're just different at different positions with different skill sets. And more importantly, if they want to ship Ben, they're going to have to move one of their younger assets, whether it's Matisse Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey. One of the two is going to have to go with Ben Simmons to get a guy like Lillard or anybody among that caliber. So I would love to see Simmons get traded. I've stashed him in my IR spot in fantasy basketball all year. I also picked up Zion because, it's like a 10-team league. I'm going to make the playoffs anyways. But the Sixers roster just frustrates me. The fact that Andre Drummond plays for them as well, it just looks weird. Because I'm pretty sure Jokic told him he was a bum for like 6 months straight 2 years ago. So I don't like the Sixers roster. They're probably my least favorite out of any Eastern Conference contender. They're just not built to compete against these other teams.
So then to round out, we got the Pistons and the Magic down at the bottom for 7-win teams. Not really too much there. The Pacers have lost 6 in a row. They're 14-25 down the 13th
That's a
spot.
fire sale team.
Yeah, honestly.
They're moving Sabonis, LeVert, and Turner if they can. They're just looking for picks.
But then 10 through 12 is interesting. You have the Knicks at 10, the Celtics at 11, and the Hawks at 12. 2 or 3 top 8 teams last season. Honestly, top 7. The Wizards were 8. Celtics were 7 last season. Hawks were 5. Knicks were 4. The Knicks and the Hawks finished 41 and 31 respectively. The Celtics finished 36 and 36. Start with wherever you want, but I mean, we could probably just blame Spike Lee for the New York Knicks issue. That's kind of what I do, is I just blame Spike Lee for any problems they have. But what are some of the problems that maybe the Celtics have, or the Hawks may have? Like, shouldn't be Trae Young. Don't you think Trae Young should be carrying this team again? Trae Young. Is that right?
Yeah, Trae Young.
Okay. I don't know why I thought I got his name wrong, but where do we start?
So if we're talking Hawks, the Hawks have a problem that defensively they were so engaged over the back half of last year and into the playoffs. I listen to a lot of other podcasts. I consume a lot of NBA media through this auditory medium. And it was on the Ringer NBA show. I can't remember who exactly said it, but he made a valid point about Atlanta's roster and how it's constructed and how we're seeing certain teams react to their star players. Trae Young is a very ball-dependent scorer. He dominates the ball in a way that, say, a Luka Doncic does, but not a Steph Curry. And if you've ever played basketball, it's a lot easier to get engaged whenever everyone's getting a share of the touches, everyone's getting the ball, essentially. Trae Young dominates the ball to the point where he is the offense. If somebody's scoring, it's usually off of a Trae Young assist or a Trae Young action. And so while last year was great, they overachieved and they were defensively just locked in. Clint Capella was a great defender. Everybody was just performing to the best of their abilities. The fact that Trae Young is so ball dependent is kind of discouraging the rest of the team to put in that defensive effort, essentially. Whereas with the Warriors, you have everybody putting in an A+ effort because Steph Curry doesn't need the ball in his hands 100% of the time to get his stats. But right. Trae Young, in order for the Hawks to win previously and so far this season, Trae Young needs to be the best player on the court, and he has to score like 30 points if they want to win games. And it's a lot easier whenever people are getting paid to say, well, just try on defense, but it's really demotivating whenever you're going through a full season full of games and anytime you feel like you're touching the ball, you have to force your shot. You have to force your way into the offense. So whenever an offense flows and it's just naturally going through everybody, your defensive output should be better just based upon the morale of the team. And with the Hawks right now, you've got a lot of guys that are trying to get theirs because of that flow of the offense.
Well, and just alone, too, I'm looking at, a game they had on Monday against the Trailblazers. The Trailblazers beat the Hawks 136-131. Trailblazers aren't running out Damian Lillard, and Trae Young put up 56 points. And that's still not enough? You're kidding me. That's crazy.
They've been ravaged by COVID for a good chunk of this year. Trae Young's missed a good slate of games due to COVID. And it's just... It's maybe a hangover from the playoff run last year, but it's just whatever magic they had in the postseason last year, it's not there right now. Not saying they can't find it. This Eastern Conference, the 7 seed is separated by it's literally less than 2 games between 7 seed and 12 seed. Yeah. So the East is very tight, and I expect over the 82 game season that out of these 3 teams, the Knicks, Celtics, and Hawks, I think the Hawks have the best chance to work their way back up, especially with teams like Washington and the Hornets. I don't know how they're going to pan out rest of season, especially with the play-in tournament. If they can just get to 9, I think the Hawks can run anybody to get into the playoffs from a play-in spot.
You just got to get that 1 game play-in and you should be good to go.
Well, if you're the 9 or 10, you have to get a 2-game play on. Yeah, you have to win 2, I think.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. You're right. You played the 7 and 8 seed. Also, for anyone watching, we figured out how to see Twitter comments. So if you're in the comments and you think our takes are bad,
we figured that out.
I basically have the stream down here, so I can see comments. Right now, it's the only way through StreamYard to see comments is to basically watch your own stream. So call me conceited, but
big fan. I'll do that too.
Yeah. So there you go. You got any comments? Come on, bring them on. The Celtics. What's wrong with the Celtics?
Oh, dude, the Celtics, they've got a lot of problems. Shoot. The problem with the Celtics is I can't tell you. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum need to be better distributors, I guess. There's just a really, I wouldn't say a broken team. They have a first-year head coach. Their GM left. Their old head coach is now the GM. And it's just a team that is underachieving. You could say the heartbeat of their team, Taco Fall, left in the offseason. I wouldn't say that's really accurate. It's a young team. This is a team that is now being led by 2 guys that are like, 24, 25 years old. And Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown could be the number ones on most teams in the league, or at least over half of them. And they're on the same team. So you're getting about 55 to 75 points a night out of this duo, give or take. Between 40 to 60, I would say, actually. Then you got Dennis Schroeder, who's got signed to the vets minimum, luckily for them, because he wouldn't sign the offer sheet from the Lakers. They've got some young talent. Josh Richardson has been the guy that underachieves on every franchise since he left Miami. Robert Williams is in a bigger role this year, which is nice. Enes Freedom, formerly known as Enes Kanter, is back on the Celtics. So, they aren't getting much defense out of their center spot. Al Horford was wheeled in on a stretcher this season. They have good players, but it's just not meshing. And whenever you have good players, but the team's not consistently gelling, it's really hard to win games in the NBA because every team has good players. But if good players don't play together, then you're not going to be able to gut out these wins. And just like the Hawks, the Celtics are in striking distance. They just need to figure out what their identity is going to be, because if they're going to continue to be Jalen and Jason versus the world, I don't think they're making the playoffs. But if they can find some semblance of teamwork and camaraderie and an ability for Tatum and Brown to become facilitators, I think they're a very dangerous team.
Especially if they can get into that play-in. They're a team that you probably don't want to play if you're.
I don't know.
It
depends on the matchup. It depends on the matchup. I wouldn't take in a 1-game play-in. I think I'd take the Cavs over the Celtics. The Raptors are really weird. The Raptors are at the precipice of just saying fuck it and blowing it all up because they're the 7 seed right now. But it's not like they're a confident 7 seed. They've played less games than any other team in the league. They're 18 and 17. Clinging onto that spot because they played less games. But
just being a Canadian team right now is really weird in terms of COVID. It's not, I'm not slamming any Canadians or anything like that, but it's the same thing that's going on in hockey right now. It's tough being a Canadian team and tough going to play Canadian teams. Some guys can't go in, some guys can't come out. It's wild.
They could be a team that I see selling before the trade deadline. Just with Goran Dragic, the deadline is in February, I think. Let me Google that.
Just so we have the correct thing here.
2022
February 10th.
February 10th, I was right. Okay. Yeah, so with Goran Dragic on the roster, I think he gets moved, especially if they're not going to be a top 5 seed. Because if they're very young, they don't really have to win this year. Their core is comprised of Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, and OG Anunoby, along with guys like Precious Achiuwa. You've got Gary Trent Jr. They are a young team. For all the credit I'll give the Celtics for being young, this Raptors team, from what it was 4 years ago, is insanely young. They're probably on the same youth movement track as the Cavs are, but I think they might have even better pieces at players than the Cavs do in certain spots. And Pascal could get moved to a contender if they really wanted to. If the Sixers get a little trigger happy, I think Siakam fills too much of that Tobias Harris role for a deal to be made. But if the Sixers just want to get Ben off their hands, why would the Raptors say no?
All right, let's move on to the Western Conference. Our top 3 teams, kind of no surprise to me. You got the Suns at 1. They're 30 and 8. The Warriors are second with 29 wins and 9 losses. Steph Curry playing out of his mind, breaking records left and right. Kind of what we expected from Steph Curry. The Jazz are at 3. They're 28 and 10. So 2 games separating the 1 and the 3 seed. Very close at the top. You got the Grizzlies at 4. The Grizzlies finished 38 and 34 last season at number 8. They're up at number 4 now at 26 and 14. John Morant's playing out of his mind. And the dude is I don't even know what to say. They've won 7 in a row. Outside of John Morant, what have the Grizzlies done to be so successful thus far?
They've got some solid players. This roster, while it's not as star-studded as, say, like Golden State or Phoenix or even Utah, where they've capitalized is they've surrounded Ja Morant with talent that just works with him. You saw the trade in the offseason, so they moved Jonas Valanciunas to grab Steven Adams. Over the last couple of years, Jaren Jackson Jr. hasn't been able to actually stay healthy for a majority of the season. I think he's been relatively healthy to start this year. They've got depth as well. You've got Ja Morant at point guard, then you've got Jarrett Culver and Tyus Jones backing him up. D'Anthony Melton is also a point guard on the roster. They got Slow-Mo at a power forward spot, and Kyle Anderson, one of the slowest but most fun players to watch in NBA history. He's so just in his own game that it's just annoying to watch. Zaire Williams got drafted this year by them. Dylan Brooks, one of the most undervalued or underrated small forwards in the league, just in terms of output that you'll get from him. He's a great shooter, solid defender, just an overall good player to have on a team like this. Desmond Bane doesn't even have a picture on Google on the Memphis Grizzlies roster. He's probably been the biggest surprise for them this year. Desmond Bane, let's pull up his Pro Basketball Reference. Basketball Monster, that'll work. Desmond Bane he's been really, really good. So let me just Google this real quick. Well, I'll just go over to here. Desmond Bane stats. Desmond Bane has put up 17.4 points per game this year. He's played in 107 career games. His normal average is around 12 points per game. He has made a significant jump in this.
Oh, looks like Devin died. Oh, there you go.
I've backed my different tabs. That was my bad. Has been really, really good, averaging about like 17.5 points per game. He has been the number 2 to Jaws 1 in a way that I don't think he had over the last couple of years. Oh, well, I'm seeing just you get onto the screen on the stream. That's really fun. Oh, man.
That was a classic anything could happen moment.
Did Devin's Wi-Fi just fucking tank again? Yeah, probably.
I thought it did.
But no, yeah, Ja Morant has a supporting cast that is built to surround him in a way that he didn't have last year or even the year prior. So shout out the Grizzlies for getting talented guys and their coach for putting those players in favorable positions. Who's the Grizzlies coach? Because he was really good last year. Like Taylor Jenkins, he's a guy that these players like.
Let's not also forget the Grizzlies beat the Thunder this year, 152-79. Yeah. New record. That was brutal.
They do not care if you're rebuilding, because their rebuild appears to be over. The Grizzlies are absolutely tearing it up this year. You want to talk about the Lakers?
You got the Mavs at 5. You can talk about one more team before you can shut on the Lakers if you want.
Mavericks are cool.
Or you can just destroy them.
What do we want to talk about with the Mavericks? So they just signed Isaiah Thomas to a 10-day contract. That can never be a good sign. They made a move to get Moses Brown in the offseason, which I enjoy because Moses Brown is a young center that I think has solid upside and potential. Tim Hardaway Jr. is everything you want and more in terms of just a high-volume spot scorer. He's very talented at scoring the rock. Luka Doncic is the sun in this offense. The entire orbit is centered around Luka Doncic. Without him, this offense does not make sense, and this roster does not make sense. You got the Twin Towers and Boban and Kristaps, two tall European guys. Boban, we know who he is. Kristaps, we're still trying to see what he actually is because he was so damn good out in New York, but the injury seemed to derail everything that he had going. But he's improving over time. And if he can get back to even 85% of what he was in New York, I think the Mavericks have something special. Frank Ntilikina, another New York defect. He's now a Maverick. You got Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber. It's a solid roster. It's just if Luka doesn't go, they don't go. As we saw in the playoffs last year, they can only go so far, and Luka has to drop a lot of points for them to go as far as they want to go.
All right. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook are 20 and 19.
Yeah. Davis has missed a lot of games this year. LeBron's missed games. Russell Westbrook doesn't miss games where he's that's one of our problems. Westbrook does not miss games. He had his first game without a turnover since like 2016.
Yeah, I saw that. That was a crazy stat. But I mean, you can really, man, how do I say this? You and I have talked about Anthony Davis offline a lot, and you know he's an amazing player. But the mind is willing, the spirit is willing. That's the word. But the body just cannot withstand even half a season for that matter. And I think, Russell Westbrook is a great player. Don't get me wrong. Carmelo Anthony was a great player. Dwight Howard, yeah. LeBron James is, a top 5, top 3 player of, our generation. But it feels like, LeBron and AD are the ones that need to stay healthy for this team to go. And that was even before Russell Westbrook and all these guys showed up. They still played well together, but now you can barely stay as the 6th seed.
Problem with the Lakers is we bet big on our top end talent, and we really didn't think the rest of it mattered that much. Because that's the thing with LeBron James led teams over history, post first Cleveland stint, whether it was the Heatles, the reboot Cavs, or now the Lakers. If you have like 3 top end guys with LeBron James, you just got to kind of surround him with shooters, and it should work out. The Lakers opted to say, fuck shooters. We're going to get guys that legally have been able to own a firearm for the last 20 years. The Lakers were coined the retirement home this year, and it's not wrong. Our average age is one of the oldest in league history. We got younger by signing Stanley Johnson to another 10-day. But Wayne Ellington, Kent Bazemore, DeAndre Jordan, Trevor Ariza, Carmelo Anthony, and Dwight Howard are all dudes that had their primes of their careers in the mid to early 2010s, if not earlier. So Carmelo's been great. He's been shooting the hell out of the ball this season in terms of percentage-wise. But Dwight and DeAndre shouldn't be playing NBA minutes. He should be a locker room guy, and that's about it. Ariza's been hurt for most of the year. Bazemore's in trade talks now. We just really built this roster. It was kind of like a wishing well. We were like, okay, I'm going to flick this quarter into this just pit and say, hey, let's win a championship. Because if Davis is healthy, I think we can compete with most teams in the West. Probably not Phoenix or Golden State, but that's the biggest thing. If Davis can come back healthy, we should be able to be a top 5 seed in the West. But it all depends on Davis's health. So if LeBron's healthy and Davis is healthy, Westbrook is just a plus in general. He shouldn't have to do all that much. But until we can get Davis on the court consistently, I don't see how I can forecast what the Lakers will actually be.
So with LeBron James having this year and next year left on his contract, maybe we won't get into is that it for LeBron James, but let's say LeBron James, let's say that is it for him. In the 2023 offseason, that's it for LeBron James, done playing basketball. You kind of guys have gone all in on LeBron James, a LeBron James-led team like the Cavs and the Heat did, and you got your championship, arguably hoping for at least one more, maybe if AD can stay healthy. The problem is right now, Phoenix and Golden State are absolute powerhouses. For now. Are you getting ready for another blow up? Like you've traded all this stuff for Russell Westbrook. Like what do you do?
No. Well, the thing is, if you look at the trajectories of these teams post LeBron James, Granted, neither of these teams that LeBron was on had Anthony fucking Davis. The Cavs were left with Kevin Love's aging kneecaps, as well as I can't even tell you what they had. Kyrie was gone already. They had Kevin Love and Dan Gilbert just being pissed off. Miami, they had Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, but Wade's knees were shot, and Chris Bosh, sadly, his career was derailed due to blood clots and health issues. The Lakers have Anthony fucking Davis. Whenever he's healthy, Anthony Davis is a top 10 player on the planet in terms of just raw skill. Yes, they won't have as many draft picks moving forward, but they could move Westbrook at some point. They'd have to take a loss on him probably, but the path to contention is not that bad. Because look at the Heat. They are left in 2015. They are 7 years removed, and they just made the finals 2 years ago or a year ago. The Cavs, they lost LeBron James in 2018, and they're back in the playoff hunt this year. The grass is greener, and with the salary cap and how the league's evolving and changing. And I think the Lakers are a better free agent destination once LeBron is gone, because LeBron is a hard sell for certain players to play with him because of how they can be reduced with his play style.
As a Lakers fan, let's take away what's happened so far. Let's take away the 39 games. When Russell Westbrook came to LA, what was your first initial thought? Were you like, cool, this is going to be great? Or is this just like why is this happening?
Since LeBron James was brought to the Lakers in 2018, I have said, okay, that's it.
That's fair.
Whenever LeBron got brought to the team, I knew there was two realities that we were going to see happen. There was one reality, to be honest. There was never any alternative. LeBron was going to come. We were going to create a championship window and make any move necessary to extend it or fulfill it. So we got LeBron. I'm like, that's cool. Like we've sucked for the last 3-4 years, and that's fine. LeBron's a huge name. Let's see what happens. Like, cool. It's gravy. I've been alive for 6 Lakers championships in my lifetime. I've actually watched along for 3 of them because I was a little too young for that first three-peat the Lakers had with Shaq and Kobe. But I've seen them win championships. I've gotten enough championships in my lifetime. I've gotten more in my lifetime than probably any fan will see half of the time in terms of just all sports. If the Chargers win a championship, I would have seen all of my franchises hoist the trophy. So yeah, it was like I expected the Lakers to do something like this. I didn't expect us to really flip the ship for Russell Westbrook. Ideally, I expected Davis. I was totally on board with the Davis pickup, and I still am. There's no way we're going to re-sign Ingram, Lonzo, and Kuzma on that same roster with LeBron James. Same thing with D'Lo and Julius Randle. We're just not able to keep those guys on the roster for what they are going to command on the market. It's just not the way that the economics work of the NBA. The Westbrook deal I was not a fan of necessarily, but I guess I put trust into Rob Pelinka. He built a roster that won a championship, and that's great. But at this point, it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's all Westbrook's fault. I'm not going to sit here like everything at this point for me is just gravy. LeBron got his title. Davis got his title, and Davis is still below 30 years old. He's like 26, 27. So it's not the end of the world when LeBron leaves. And it's just what you sign up for. If you add LeBron James to your roster, say goodbye to whatever it was.
Yeah. Honestly, if you're ever looking to for somebody to blame, Odell Beckham, we're looking at you.
Dan Gilbert, I'm talking to you, man.
All right, let's move down the list a little bit. You got the Nuggets and the Clippers at 7 and 8. Clippers are at 19 and 20. The Nuggets are at 18 and 18. Any surprises there for you?
Injuries. No Kawhi, no
injuries
problems
and
with
COVID.
Clippers, but Paul George went down. And without Paul George, you got a roster that is starring Terrence Mann and Reggie Jackson. Not ideal. They're both good players. The Clippers have some very solid guys on their roster, but Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are what make them go. And without both of them in the lineup, you are fighting tooth and nail to drag out wins. And it's just really a lot of effort and a lot of energy to just maintain. And if Paul George isn't back in the next 2 months, I think they're going to skid pretty hard. Nuggets, same idea. Jamal Murray still isn't back. And Michael Porter Jr., due to his back, has missed a huge portion of this league year. And he's probably going to miss the rest of it. Nikola Jokic, somebody buy that man a back brace. He puts his team on his back night in and night out. Reigning MVP, he's in the discussion this year. Aaron Gordon, good for him. He's having a good year. He's a good player. He's extended his range a little bit, but it's just they are not fully healthy, and I'm not going to really sit here and judge them too harshly until I can see Murray on the court and what their ceiling is then. Because Porter's a non-factor now. He's not going to play this year.
Yeah.
But with Murray, Gordon, and Jokic, I like them more than Dallas, and they have a compelling case against Memphis. And if I have a healthy Anthony Davis, I still think I like the Lakers more than the Nuggets. But then it comes down to the role guys, and that's just a really antiquated and parsed out discussion.
Looking at the bottom, you got the Rockets and the Thunder. No real surprises there. The Pelicans at 13. You got the Kings and the Trailblazers at 11 and 12. Trailblazers kind of without Damian Lillard are a basketball team placed in Portland.
The Trailblazers went win now in a conference that's been win now since Damian Lillard was a rookie.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard's best roster was probably his rookie year whenever they had Batum, Aldridge, and Wes Matthews surrounding him. That one year whenever they beat Houston in the playoffs, whenever he hit that leaning three-pointer over Chandler Parsons. Because this roster, Yusuf Nurkic, they bet on the wrong dude out in Denver, or Denver bet right. Because it was Nurkic or Jokic. Those are the two big guys. And then the Nuggets sold Nurkic, and it's panned out for them because Jokic is one of the best players on the planet. Dennis Smith Jr., he is a guy that didn't pan out in New York or Dallas. Larry Nance Jr., he is a serviceable power forward. They've got Rocco, Ben McLemore, Cody Zeller. It's like the island of misfit toys to a certain extent. The only players the Blazers wanted on this roster, they've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that I can name off the top of my head. Everybody else, it just seems like they're on the roster as a byproduct of moves they have made to try and get better. Dame, CJ, Norman Powell, Nurkic to an extent, Anthony Simons, and Nasir Little. Beyond that, this team is just, they're lost to a certain extent.
Yeah.
There's not inherent value in any of these other role guys that they can move to get better assets. And even Nasir Little, he hasn't proven enough in the NBA to actually be desired to the point where you can get assets. So now they're sitting here. They're older than the Raptors. They're older than these younger teams that are still exciting, but they're also not as good as those younger teams due to being older. So they're at a crossroads. Do you move Nurk and CJ and try and get somebody to pair with Dame, or you just cut the cord and start rebuilding? Because Dame's value is not going to get any higher than it is now. He's hitting his 30s.
Yeah.
It's a tough decision, but you never want to be on the wrong end of waiting.
Yeah, it's Damian fucking Lillard. Like you want to. I mean, I know he's been in the conversation to try and ship Ben Simmons and other players that way to bring Dame to the 76ers, which would put them in a good spot. But, both teams are kind of in the spot where the 76ers want to command a lot for Ben Simmons, but Portland also has to command a lot for Damian Lillard. And I just don't think those two can get on the same page. I can't see that happening.
Yeah, I don't even see a team that's willing to make the move for Dame at this point.
Yeah,
it just doesn't make sense.
It's a lot. I mean, the Thunder have like 97 picks, so.
But it doesn't change anything for anyone. Dame's not taking the Thunder to the playoffs. Maybe the Eastern Conference. Maybe the Sixers don't make sense because I don't think Ben Simmons would make sense with Portland in terms of their plan. I thought Dame to the Cavs would be interesting.
I was about to say maybe the Cavs. Like you kind of have to look at the teams who are like kind of a surprise in the East. Like
it's
the Bulls
or the Cavs for me.
It's the Knicks or the Cavs.
And I don't think the Knicks have enough. I think the Cavs, you ship off Colin Sexton and you could, anybody that's not Garland or Mobley, essentially. You send off Colin Sexton, Jarrett Allen, or like Okoro and Jarrett Allen in first-round picks. Sexton and Okoro and first-rounders. It's a combination of Okoro or Allen with Colin Sexton with like 2 or 3 first-rounders. That's how you get Damian Lillard on that Cavs roster. And the Knicks, you just grandfather off for them because Dame in MSG is probably the biggest thing the Knicks have seen since Melo.
Yeah.
So the move's just really hard because of how much the Blazers will want and what these teams that could use him technically have.
To round out the Western Conference, will the Kings ever be relevant in our lifetime?
They will eventually. They made a good start. They made a good decision earlier this year in firing Luke Walton. The Lakers waited too long to do that as well. Luke Walton has been a terrible head coach, great assistant, but terrible head coach. They need to stop firing head coaches. They had Mike Malone in Sacramento, the guy that's out there coaching Jokic to MVP seasons. They literally fired Mike Malone because he had a down year, which is insane because every year in Sacramento's a down year over the last decade.
Exactly.
So they overcorrect all the time, and it's their biggest problem. Tristan Thompson's there, so they have even more problems. Halliburton, Fox, and Mitchell are all great, but one of them is going to have to get moved, I believe,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme because of how contracts work. Marvin Bagley's been a disappointment. Buddy Hield has been good. Harrison Barnes was the best player on the planet for 2 weeks to start the year in fantasy basketball. And then everybody else is just kind of guys. Mo Harkless, Rashawn Holmes got paid, which is cool. Terrence Davis is a solid player. Damian Jones had a good chunk of last year. It's just the Kings. I think ownership needs to change. Vivek Ranadive has not done much to help this team win in his tenure. Vlade Divac got out as if Vlade is still GM, get him the fuck out of town. The Kings have good bones, but they're just not drinking enough milk. So they have solid bones, but they could be a lot better if they actually invested in their roster and made moves and, invested in the team. But until that happens, the Kings are just kind of toiling away.
In terms of awards, we'll just start with the most obvious. Is there anybody that's going to challenge Steph Curry for an MVP?
There's players. The two closest are going to be Jokic and Durant. It depends on how the seeding falls. I think Jokic has the hardest shot at MVP because he's currently 7th in the standings. But statistically, Jokic is having the most impressive season. He's averaging like 27 a game with like almost he's basically averaging 26 with like 14 boards and like 7 assists. That's more assists than Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, more boards than both of them, and like 2 to 3 points less per game. So he has a broader impact on games if you're just looking at the raw stats. Like he accounts for more points in an individual game than either of them. Steph broke the 3-point record all time. His narrative is absolutely insane. The Warriors are one of the best teams in basketball. If the Warriors get the 1 or 2 seed, it's Steph Curry's award, unless the Nets just round off an insane run like the Heat did, and Durant's averaging 30 a game, then he has a conversation to be in it. But as of now, Steph Curry is going to win this award. He's already got 2. It would give him 3 for his career. It would cap off a historic season, and it seems like every historic season he's had, it gets capped off with an MVP.
Well, and the thing too about Steph Curry is that like I know future seasons don't matter kind of in this conversation, but he didn't just break the 3-point record. He's going to shatter it.
No, yeah, he's going to hit like 4,000 threes.
Yeah, he's 33. He still has more seasons left in him for sure. Maybe a few more titles if, Klay Thompson's able to get healthy and able to get back on the court with him and Draymond.
That might not even matter. They have Jordan Poole. They've got Jonathan Kuminga. This team is reloaded in a way that I didn't expect.
It's just he broke Ray Allen's record at MSG, which was really cool, but he's going to shatter it. And I don't know, maybe somebody comes close sometime in the future, but who knows? The dude revolutionized the game in terms of 3 points is more than 2. So I'm just going to hit from beyond wherever the hell I want on a consistent basis. Yeah. The dude's nuts. He changed the game of basketball. So for me, it's unless Curry unfortunately would go down with an injury or, unless Kevin Durant and the Nets can go off, it's Steph Curry's award to lose at this point.
Yep.
Any other awards that you got that you think are locked already? Halfway through? No. Are we halfway through? Just about.
I think the most intriguing award this year is probably most improved because there's been a lot of guys that jumped this season in terms of output and their production. Just looking at the top 12 most improved player odds, it's looking at the stats these guys are putting up across the league is insane. At the top is Ja Morant. He's putting up 26 points a game. Then you got Miles Bridges, who's now a 20-point per game scorer. DeJounte Murray is almost averaging a triple-double out in San Antonio. Tyler Hero is putting up 20-plus a game. Anthony Edwards is now at 22, 23 points a game. Cole Anthony, even though the Magic suck, is almost at 20 points a game. Maxey, Barnes, Mo Bamba, Jordan Poole, Brunson, Grayson Allen. You got guys that were averaging like single digits or like low tens. They're now in mid-teens all the way up to like 20 points per game. This is probably the deepest class of most improved that we've had in years. And I think there's 3 names that I'm going to keep my eye on in the grand scheme. I think it's going to be Ja. I think it's going to be Anthony Edwards, especially if the Timberwolves make the playoffs. And then I think another name that I'm going to keep looking at is Tyler Hero. If the Heat make the playoffs as a 4 seed, Tyler Hero is going to have to keep this up, especially with the injuries that they've been dealing with. But I think if Ja is going to continue to average 26, 27 a game, it's his award to lose. It'll be like whenever Giannis won it, like 3-4 years ago, or whenever Jimmy Butler got the award as well. Coach of the year, I think Steve Kerr's in the discussion. Monty Williams is in the discussion. You got to look at Chicago as well. I think Chicago has a case. I don't know. I think it's Billy Donovan out there. But, yeah, we're probably looking at Steve Kerr or Monty Williams in terms of coach of the year at this point. Defensive player of the year, Draymond Green, Rudy Gobert. Those are the two names. Everybody else can be sprinkled in. If Ben Simmons was playing, I'd give him a nod. But, he hasn't touched the ball. And then rookie of the year, Evan Mobley. Any objections? Yeah, Evan Mobley's transcendent. Love that guy. Executive of the year probably goes to fucking Bob Myers again. The moves the Warriors made in the offseason are literally paying dividends. And if you want to give it to the Suns guy, he didn't re-sign DeAndre Ayton. What the fuck are we talking about? And then that's about it, right? You got sixth man of the year, I guess. I'll look up some rankings there. I haven't been able to watch a fuck ton of basketball this year due to my okay, so no, I need rankings, not winners.
Rankings. We'll take winners too.
So current rankings, I got Jalen Brunson, Dennis Schroeder, Carmelo Anthony, Montrezl Harrell, and Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero could, probably. As of right now, Tyler Hero is probably sixth man of the year. He's averaging 20 a game, and he's not even the starting shooting guard out there.
Yeah, that makes no sense to me.
I'd put here at this point, Hero's the sixth man of the year. But that's about it for basketball. Okay. It's been a deep dive, and we'll be talking more about it more consistently. So I actually have to watch more games. So my apologies if I misspoke on anything. I'm a little out of practice.
Yeah, once football season ends, football season's going down a little bit. Like, the playoffs are going, but when there's only 2 playoff games, we'll talk about them for a half hour, and then we can jump into basketball after that. So
unless the Chargers win the Super Bowl, and I'll talk about it for 6 hours.
Okay. Chargers, Cowboys, Super Bowl.
Hey, dude, Justin Herbert, 4,000 yards and 10 touchdowns as the Cowboys get relocated to Panama.
At that point, I would just throw a dart at a board to pick a new team.
Fair enough.
All right.
MLB talk, baby. We're going to start our own negotiations.
Oh, we are currently in a lockout for Major League Baseball. Big fucking shock, right? They couldn't get together very well in 2020. We had a 60-game sprint. Dodgers won the World Series. Put an asterisk on it. I'm just kidding. It's going to go down in the record books as a World Series. It's a World Series. Are we surprised by this lockout? No, I'm not surprised in the slightest, especially after watching 2020. There's a lot of things that need to happen. A lot of rules need to be taken out. A lot of rules need to be implemented, but this is more of a money problem. Owners want more money. Players want more money. Rob Manfred's a clown, and it's their children. The fact that they have had 2 discussions in December and none since the new year is ridiculous. The fact that they are kind of showing that they really just don't give a shit about us. They really don't give a shit if we show up to a game or not right now. It's ridiculous. I love the game of baseball. I've grown up with it my whole life. I work at a baseball stadium, and I love going to 50 to 60 games a year. It's the kid in me loves it. It sucks to watch this sport slowly die in front of me. I don't think the game of baseball is ever going to actually die per se, but to watch viewership go down and basically have ownership and these kind of executives push us away. The fact that we don't know if we're going to have a spring training or even a season for that matter. I think we'll have a season. Wouldn't be surprised if it's reduced. The problem is we still have a ton of more free agents to be signed. You still have guys like Carlos Correa, Chris Bryant, just to name 2 outstanding players who don't have teams right now, and they can't sign with anybody, and they can't sign with anybody until the negotiations are done, and then they have to go back and start negotiating again. Correa's turned down offers. I'm sure Bryant's turned down offers. So we got a long ways to go in terms of baseball. But let's talk about some of the moves that happened before the lockout. Okay. I got a list here, so we'll just go through. The Dodgers re-signed Chris Taylor. I think that's huge for them. I think they lost a lot of pieces over the offseason. Corey Seager We'll get to him pretty soon. They've already lost Corey Seager. They've lost Max Scherzer. And it's going to be tough for the Dodgers. It's going to be tough for them to put out 5 starting pitchers this season, in my opinion. Yep. I feel like that's the most dangerous spot for them right now. Their bullpen is always a little bit shaky, so you can never really determine if the Dodgers bullpen is going to be great. But to have a great Chris Taylor had a great year. He deserves the contract that he got. He deserved to get paid. He's a great utility guy, so I think that's a really good move for the Dodgers. The Cubs signed Marcus Stroman. This move is weird to me. The Cubs blew up.
They're not that far off, though, for their division. I don't think they're that bad.
Their division's awful. Anybody can compete in the NL Central any given year right now. It's weird. I just expected Marcus Stroman to go to a bigger contender. But he
Yeah, I can't hear a word you're saying. Okay, so my baseball takes. My baseball takes are great because I am a Giants fan and I'm a little delusional after last year. I'm still living on a prayer. But so this offseason, I think, so I just pulled up the Cubs roster, and in terms of they blew it the hell up. They got rid of their 3 cornerstones. They still have Wilson Contreras, who was a solid catcher. They added Nick Madrigal, who blew out something in his leg in last season. He was the rookie second baseman for the White Sox. I think adding him to the Cubs was a great value move for the Cubs whenever they moved Craig Kimbrell. I think Nick Madrigal is going to be a really good hitter for average over his career. He's not going to smack 30 homers, but he'll get you 5 homers, a 315 batting average, and 40 RBIs maybe. He'll be a great top of the lineup guy. And while they sold at the trade deadline, they got prospects back. I mean, they got actual value on investments. So while Stroman to the Cubs doesn't make as much sense as, say, him going to, I don't know, maybe back to Toronto or re-signing with the Mets or one of these teams that, has higher aspirations, it makes sense to me. He could be the number 1 on their roster. He could be the number 1 on their pitching staff. He can make as much money as he wants to. And if he performs well, he can get a legacy deal out in Chicago in terms of you chose us, you bet on yourself, you balled out, we're going to give you another deal, essentially. And the Cubs could be the best team in that division in the next 5 years or next 3 years with how the NL Central really is. Because Castellanos, isn't he a free agent this year, or is he a free agent next year? So he could be out of Chicago. He could be out of Cincinnati. It's just the NL Central is so damn volatile.
Yeah, seriously.
If you believe in a roster, you might as well just go there, because odds are, if you believe in the roster, the other teams will fuck it up at some point.
What is going on? Am I good?
Yeah, you're good. I can hear you.
Oh, finally. Okay, geez. I don't know what happened there. Anything can happen live, kids. Devin stepped out. My mic just decided to explode. Okay. Where was I?
Fair one, right?
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Stroman. didn't make a whole lot of sense. Nick Martinez signed with the Padres. Unmemorable player from the Texas Rangers seasons in 2014 through 2017. He's going to be a back end of the rotation guy. They kind of just need him to eat innings. The Padres massively underperformed last season. Tatis, Machado, Hosmer, Frazier, Snell, Darvish, Melanson. This team was stacked and they finished under 500. Just unacceptable. They fired their head coach, their manager, Jace Tingler. Honestly, I think the Padres have made one of the biggest moves of the offseason, hiring Bob Melvin. Yep. Bob Melvin's been out in Oakland for the past 10, 12 years. Probably one of the most underrated managers in history, I would say. I've watched this dude manage the team that I work for. He's done very well with given very, very little. The A's historically do not give their managers a whole lot to work with, and he found a way to get them in the playoffs multiple times. They never won a division series because they kept running into Justin Verlander, and then they ran into a one-game wild card where they just didn't show up for they had a tough break in Kansas City in 2015. 2015. They blew a lead there. Then they ran to the Yankees and the Rays where they just flat out didn't show up for those games. So it's been tough for the A's. The A's are now hoping Mark Kotsay and Brad Ausmus can get him to the promised land, but we'll see how that goes. But I think Bob Melvin to the Padres is probably one of the biggest things of this offseason. The Red Sox traded Hunter Renfroe for Jackie Bradley Jr., basically bringing Jackie Bradley back to the Red Sox.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Clemson product to Renfroe plays baseball.
No. I thought the same thing at one point. I was like, wait a minute. I've heard that name before.
What's going on? Derek Carr's like, who the fuck is Jackie Bradley?
I think this is a fine move for both teams. Hunter Renfroe heads to Milwaukee. He's got a cannon, big power hitter. I think that's what the Brewers are lacking. They didn't really have anybody to complement Christian Yelich, and Yelich had a down year, so that didn't help. I think Renfroe provides a lot of power and defense for that team. For the Red Sox, they basically get a star center fielder back, which is great for them. The D-backs signed Mark Melanson. I think the D-backs are still going to be a bad team, but to have a good back of the end closer, it's a good place to start. Closing out games was really tough for them last season. And I think Melanson fixes that problem for them for sure. The Red Sox signed Rich Hill, guy who can eat up innings. He doesn't throw very fast. He throws a heavy curveball and throws about 80-something miles an hour. He's going to eat innings, and that's kind of what you need from a middle-of-the-rotation type of guy to be there with Sale and whoever they can get at that point up at the top of the rotation. I would expect him to be the number 3 guy for the Red Sox, but I'm not sure who number 2 is, as long as Sale is healthy.
Yeah.
Giants signed Alex Cobb. Alex Cobb has kind of had a mediocre career. I think he'll be a great innings eater for the Giants rotation to kind of put in the back end of the rotation. I expect him to be about number, let's see, you guys lost Gosman, but you still have, good Lord. Who your rotation, help me out here. Who's the guy that beat up the Dodgers at home?
Oh, Logan Webb.
Thank you, Logan Webb. Logan Webb will be at the top of the rotation.
You got Disco, Alex Wood.
Alex Descafalani, Alex Wood. Yeah, I expect Alex Cobb to be the 3 or 4 guy for the Giants, and I think that's kind of where he belongs.
Anthony Descalfani, not Alex. Let's give him some respect.
My bad. You're
good. This goes
talking
crazy,
too fast.
I saw him pitch live this year, and then Eddie Rosario hit for the cycle. So shout out the Braves for pulling it off if the Giants could. So I got to see the World Series champions play. But man, Disco's got some. He's got some stuff. Hopefully, he can keep it up.
Red Sox signed James Paxton. I forgot about this move, so I think that'll be a solid number 2 for them, right in front of Rich Hill, but behind Chris Sale. James Paxton has not had a very healthy career. He's a big dude. He can be a strikeout machine. He's got a no-hitter under his belt. I think he could be very good, but he's got to stay healthy. If he could stay healthy, he could have a very good season for the Red Sox. So we'll see how that move works out for them. The rotation is starting to shape out pretty well, though. Angels signing Raisel Iglesias. The Angels haven't had a good closer since since K-Rod, basically. So to sign Raisel Iglesias, not the best closer in the league, but consistently gets about 20-something saves, close to 30 a year. That's kind of what the Angels need. The Angels can score runs. They just can't keep the opponent from scoring runs. Rays traded Joey Wendell. The Rays have just too many infielders. It's kind of what that is to me. They are a team that doesn't spend a whole lot of money. They got Wander Franco now. Their infield is just very packed. So somebody had to go. And for Joey Wendell, it was him. Cubs signed Yan Gomes, maybe a starting catcher for them. I think they still have Wilson Contreras. Do they still have Wilson Contreras?
Yeah, Wilson. He's the one guy they didn't sell.
There you go. So Wilson Contreras, Yan Gomes, that's a good 1-2 punch for me.
They got Clint Frazier as well. They signed him, which I think is good value. Clint Frazier, whenever he's good, is pretty damn good with the bat.
Yankees just have too many outfielders, and they won't get rid of Brett Gardner. So
I like Clint Frazier at what they got him for. He should be a really solid value. I'm telling you, dude, the Cubs, they're young, they're spry. Nick Madrigal, MVP season. No, I'm kidding.
Nick Madrigal could be a stud.
He's going to be a Gold Glove talent in the field with a very high average. He was I completely understand why he's not a White Sox anymore. The White Sox are very win now. Madrigal got hurt for a season. He probably still has a lot of developing to do, but I think he's going to be a great player. Oh, he's got everything besides power. He's quick, he can field, and he can hit for a really, really high average. He will be a great top of the lineup dude for the Cubs for years to come.
Tigers signed Javier Baez. In my opinion, there were four shortstops, top of the line shortstops on the market: Corey Seager, Carlos Correa, Trevor Story, Javier Baez. In my honest opinion, I felt Javier Baez was the worst of the four. To set a bar extremely high.
He has the least upside of the four. I don't think he's relatively worse than any of them. But in terms of what you're getting top end, best case scenario, Baez is like he's basically the three true outcome guy of the class. He's going to strike out, hit a home run, or walk. And he doesn't walk all that often.
Yeah. But he's a Gold Glove player.
Yeah, his defense is
very
insane.
good.
It's wicked, but I agree. I just think Baez's upside in terms of what his bat can give you consistently is just lower than the other three.
But he does command a lower contract than the three. They signed him for 6 years, $140 million. AJ Hinch has really had a really good season with the Tigers. I still believe they finished under 500, but he got them from basically a rebuild to, hey, we're getting there.
I think the Tigers signing Baez is actually good, like sneakily good for the value and money that they signed him for.
Well, here's the thing too. They offered Correa 10 years, $275 million, and Correa turned it down. So that makes the deal a little bit better.
Well, they have Spencer Torkelson at third base that will eventually come up. Casey Mize is a young pitcher. Akil Baddoo had a great rookie year last year. They have some pieces in this. They have some pieces in Detroit that if AJ Hinch and the front office can like synergize like they did in Houston knocking on shit, Detroit's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. So we'll see how that turns out. Baez is 29 years old, so they'll get him for most of his 30s, which is a weird time in baseball now. Everyone goes back now to the Albert Pujols that he basically spent his entire 30s as an Angel, and that didn't go very well for the Angels. So signing players at this kind of age is weird now. So we'll see. I think it'll be fine for the Tigers. I don't think Baez is going to be this major bust that everyone thinks. I just don't think he'll be as great as advertised. I think because he kind of has these flashy plays, and he's done that whole first base between home play with the Pirates where the guy should have just turned around and stepped on first. You know, they give him like this huge thing where I just don't think Baez is as great as advertised.
The bottom line for me with Baez is Detroit got a champion all MLB fielder with a streaky bat for like half the cost of what Correa commanded.
Yeah, less
They
than
have
that.
him, and they have him for like 60% of what that contract for Correa could have commanded. So
Yep.
genuinely, while Baez isn't the can't miss guy like a Trevor Story or a Carlos Correa or even a Corey Seager, this deal will probably age the best out of all of the free agent shortstop signings this offseason, especially with what Detroit currently has in place. And I trust their manager more than these other, I trust AJ Hinch probably more than what you guys have out in Texas right now. Just due to track records.
Speaking of Texas, we'll get to those two signings. The Texas Rangers spent over $500 million signing Marcus Simeon and Corey Seager, virtually creating the best middle infield in the league right now. Trying to. Yeah. I am, as a Texas Ranger fan, I love these deals. Marcus Simeon had an absolute career year, most home runs as a second baseman. He is okay with playing second base. That's kind of where we had a hole since Rougned Odor. The best thing he did was punch Jose Bautista in the face. Shortstop's been a little weird for us. We moved Isaiah Kiner-Falefa from third to short, virtually probably pushing Isaiah back to third or to a different team. I like Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, but he's not Corey Seager. Corey Seager and Chris Woodward have connections back in the Dodgers organization when Chris Woodward was the fielding coach and the third base coach. So he really fought to get Corey Seager, all-star caliber player, to sign him for 10 years. Pretty sure it was a 10-year deal. 10 years, $325 million, basically getting Corey for the rest of his career. Yeah. He will be 28 in April, so we get him basically like throughout his prime is already. Yeah. We got him like right at his prime. We'll get him through the rest of his prime and hopefully a little bit more thereafter. Marcus Simeon probably got told that they were signing Corey Seager because the Rangers are not a good baseball team right now. We finished about, I believe it was 58 and 104, somewhere around there. I think we finished. We finished with over 100 losses. We're not a good baseball team. We've kind of struggled in the spots of were we competing? We were trying to compete for the playoffs up until 2018. Didn't blow it up until 2021. We blew it up by trading out Joey Gallo, which completely made sense to me. We got 4 solid prospects. Our pitching is extremely young. The Rangers have money to spend. They have almost no contract obligations going into the season. If you look about everyone at every position, they're on a rookie contract. They're making less than a couple $1 million. This is why the Rangers have spent the most money in the offseason ever. They will continue to spend money when the lockout is done. We are tied to Clayton Kershaw coming back home, possibly. They kind of need that top of the rotation guy if they want to compete this season. I do not foresee the Texas Rangers competing this season. If any Texas Rangers fan were to watch this, I would tell them be satisfied with 81 and 81. If there's a 162 game season and we finish 500, that is a successful season, and we will contend in the playoffs for 2023. We give our young pitchers another year under their belt to kind of get beat up a little bit. We have Taylor Hearn, Colby Allard, Dane Dunning. We got him in the Lance Lynn trade. Missing one other guy. Oh goodness, I'm not a good fan, am I? I had him in my head, and now he's gone. Glenn Otto. We got Glenn Otto in the Joey Gallo trade. The dude has a frisbee wicked slider. He gets beat up when he can't find it, though. I watched it happen. Literally heard him talking about it, how he just couldn't find the slider, so he got beat up. These guys got to go in there and get their asses kicked. That's kind of what pitchers have to do. Jack Leiter is probably a season away. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the rotation in 2023, maybe even this year. I don't know. They say like Jack Leiter.
They probably throw him out there.
Yeah, they say Jack Leiter has one of the best fastballs they've ever seen in their entire lives. So, hey, man, I'm up for it. We signed John Gray. We have a decent track record of signing random veterans and turning them into something. Jordan Lyles, Mike Fultonevich didn't really work out too well. But we signed Lance Lynn at one point, traded him for a good ransom. We signed Kyle Gibson, traded him for a decent ransom. So John Gray's pitched his entire career in Colorado, a tough place to pitch. So his career numbers are kind of high. It'll be interesting to see him pitch in a pitcher's park. He's been the top of the rotation guy for the Rockies since his career started. Always playing on a non-contender. So we'll see how John Gray pans out. I like having these kind of veteran guys in who have done it before, who can teach these young guys. Because if you're going to throw out 5 23-year-old guys, they have nobody to back up on. When they get hit around, there's nobody to go talk to. Especially if we were to sign Clayton Kershaw, I think that would be insane to get him for at least 2 years. I don't know. Clayton's got back issues. I don't know how much Clayton has left in the tank, or if we're even going to sign him. But I know the Rangers are not done spending yet.
Yeah. I think personally for myself, my favorite deal before the lockout initiated was Buxton getting inked by the Twins. It's a 7-year, $100 million deal. I think it's going to turn out to be one of the best bargains in baseball over the next 7 years. Because if he can finally get the health right, he is a top 3 center fielder in baseball, damn near, whenever he puts the bat together with his fielding. He's faster than damn near anybody else in the diamond, and he can hit harder than damn near anybody else as well. Back to my point about Javier Baez, one of the most exciting things about Detroit moving forward as well is their first-round pick from this year, Jackson Jobe. Like, I don't know if you've looked into this guy a whole lot. He's legit. Whenever I saw a feature on him, and they were basically quantifying him to being possibly the next like Jacob deGrom. Obviously, it probably doesn't pan out to hit that level of pitching in the MLB, but just in terms of his intangibles and his like speed metrics and like his makeup as a player, it's eerily similar. DeGrom played shortstop in college, as everybody knows, and transitioned to pitcher. Jackson Jobe didn't pitch until like 2 years ago. And in those 2 years, he's been one of the best pitching high school pitchers that we've seen like in the last 2 years. He was basically the class of high school pitchers in this draft. It was Jackson Jobe, but then, you had your college guys. But if Detroit can pan him out, from what I've seen, his stuff is nasty. He is really somebody to look out for. And he's stupid young. So he's going to be able to develop for like 4 or 5 years and still be a young rookie whenever the Tigers end up using him.
Blue Jays, they signed Kevin Gausman. I think it's a huge loss for the Giants, I would say. That was kind of your top of the rotation guy. We'll see how he pans out, mainly because the Giants have been credited with this incredible sabermetrics and being able to find spin rate and reviving guys' careers. Kevin Gausman being one of them. Blue Jays now have Jose Barrios, Hyun-Jin Ryu, and Kevin Gausman. That's an insanely top 3. And when you're in the AL East, you got to compete. It's either compete or move out of the way. And right now, the Orioles are the only team moving out of the way. White Sox signed Kendall Graveman. They're basically shaping out to have probably the best bullpen in the league. They'll have Liam Hendricks, Kendall Graveman, Greg Kimbrell, Garrett Crochet, Michael Kopech, Aaron Bummer, Ryan Tepera. They're going to literally probably, it wouldn't surprise me if by the end of 2022, the White Sox have a record low bullpen ERA if these guys pan out what they're supposed to.
Oh, wow. It looks like Austin might have backed out of his own page. So he is back. We're bringing him back on the stream. Welcome back, buddy. Wow, I am the captain now. I'm on the left-hand side.
It is a bad day to stream.
You hit backspace or what?
Yeah, I hit back on the wrong thing. But yeah, White Sox arguably going to have one of the best bullpens in the league, maybe historically, if those guys pan out what they're supposed to be. Last couple moves, I think the biggest ones, Seattle Mariners. The Seattle Mariners are tired of not making the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs in 20 years. They have traded for Adam Frazier. They have signed Cy Young winner Robbie Ray. Mm-hmm. They have Kyle Lewis. Corey Seager retired, so that leaves an opening for one more big move. And they can sign Chris Bryant. That would be astronomical for the Seattle Mariners. I think that would be the last piece that they need with Kyle Seager retiring. They have this kind of front of the rotation now. But for me, I'm a Texas Ranger fan. I've been watching the AL West since I was a wee lad. The Mariners will prove it to me when they do it. They've had hype before. This is not the first time they've gotten close. They've started off hot. Then the Mariners have always found a way to fail. And it's shitty for the fan base, but it's what's been happening since 2001.
Yeah.
Since they've won 116 games, it feels like they haven't won 116 games combined in 20 years. They've always been at the bottom. They've kind of been a nuisance on the side of some teams, but they haven't been able to get to the top.
Yeah.
But I think they're one move away from doing it. Even without Chris Bryant, I still think they might be able to be in a good spot. Pitching will be their biggest thing. I don't know who their 5 is going to be. We'll do that when we get to the AL West later in the year. But right now they're a top 3 team in the AL East, while it looks like the A's and the Rangers will probably be near the bottom.
Yep.
AL West is stacking out to be probably the best division in the league. If Houston plays well, the Rangers exceed expectations. The A's continue to be a pain in the ass. The Angels get pitching, and Seattle makes moves.
Yeah, that's fair. The Giants also got Brandon Belt to sign his qualifying offer like mid-November of last year, which is great for them because they're going to need him with Posey retiring. My favorite move besides Buxton is the Rays just cashing out Wander Franco. I know Austin hates deals like this.
I didn't love it.
It's the future of baseball. It's the future of baseball. The Braves just won a championship.
The Rays have done it before. The Rays have paid their rookies significantly less than what they would later on. They did it with Blake Snell. Blake Snell won the Cy Young, and they gave him about 4 years, 40-something million, where Blake Snell had one of the best Cy Young careers one of the best Cy Young seasons in history, and they basically underpaid him.
The Atlanta Braves just did this exact thing. They did it before every other team got smart enough to just cash out their young guys for 10 years immediately. I'm pretty sure Acuna, let me look up Ronald Acuna's deal. He doesn't blow his knee out. He is the MVP of the league. And then the Braves probably don't win the World Series just because of the move they made, the trade deadline. But looking at Acuna's contract, it is probably the best deal in all of baseball. Same thing with Ozzie Albies. They make, so it's an 8-year, $100 million contract. He's making around $17 million until 2028, where he's unrestricted. That is insane value. Ronald Acuna is a top 3 MVP guy the next decade. And then let's look at Ozzie Albies, who's arguably the best second baseman in the NL any given year. Like he's top 3 at least at this point, right?
Yeah, seriously.
So looking at Albies' contract, we now have this one's even worse. So, oh my God. So his next deal kicks in 2022. And in that one, 2021, he got paid $3 million. He won the Silver Slugger for second baseman and got all MLB. That's insane. Gets even crazier. 2022 to 2026, he will not make a salary over $7 million. And in the final year of that deal, he's making $4 million. Yeah. Sign your young dudes before they are too old to command the most money baseball's ever seen.
It was just really tough for me to pay a guy who's played 60 games. That's tough.
He's graded out as the best prospect baseball has arguably ever seen.
But I've heard that before. You know what I mean?
No, I get it.
Like, I love prospects, don't get me wrong. Apparently, Luis Angel Acuna, Ronald says that Luis Angel is just as good as him, if not better, and he's sitting in the Texas Rangers system. At any point, we could call up Acuna and have our own Acuna. But do I know if he's going to pan out? No. It's all hype, and that bothers me sometimes. Like, I get it. The Rays kind of have to do it because they're not going to pay anybody else. They're not going to go sign big free agents. They're not going to go get Nicholas Castellanos. They're not going to sign Max Scherzer. They have to pay these guys as low as they can because they won't pay anybody what their price is.
At worst, this deal is 12 years, $185 million. For what could be the best shortstop in baseball, that is insane value. Because Trevor Story and Carlos Correa are going to command 10 years, 280-something million. At the top end of this deal, if he hits every incentive, it's $223 million. It is still a bargain. They're getting 2 extra years on top of that Seeger deal for a guy that's going to be younger, and they can just re-up whenever it's finally over. I understand the qualms and being afraid of it, but it's risk averse because it's 12 years for 185, which is under 20 million a season if he doesn't hit his incentives, which if he's even league average 12, like under 20 million a year with how the salary cap is going. There's no salary cap as well.
Yeah.
With how the league revenues are going to skew, everything always goes up with professional sports. At that number, it can't be that devastating of a hit.
Mm-hmm.
It's low risk, extremely high reward, and if it doesn't pan out, who gives a shit? You needed to spend money anyways.
Couple more moves, and then we'll get on out of here. The Mets signed Max Scherzer to the biggest deal in history, paying him basically $44 million a year. They lost Marcus Stroman and Noah Syndergaard, so they kind of had to get the best guy on the market. They also signed Starling Marte, Mark Canha. I personally do not like Mark Canha as a person or as a player. I hated him as an A. I don't like him now. I think that's a bad move for the Mets. He had a down year. Starling Marte, super transcendent player, can change a game with just his base running. I think that's a great signing for them. But we literally said it last season when we were doing the NL East, and they did it. The Mets are going to Met. They are the Seattle Mariners right now. They are not going to. They can't prove it to anyone until they actually do it.
Yeah,
you're not going to convince anybody in the offseason. That's just one of the teams that you will not convince you, regardless of how many moves they make. They could trade for Mike Trout tomorrow, and I'd be like, who knows? Yep. So it's Mets, tough. Baby. The Mets. We talked about Noah Syndergaard. He's off to the Angels. No idea what to expect out of Syndergaard. Insanely. Yep, exactly. So it's a 1-year deal. The Angels have been desperate for pitching for a long time. It's the bane of Mike Trout's existence. They also signed Aaron Loop, so they're trying. But the Angels need to have a team ERA like under 5 to be compete, and Mike Trout to be healthy any given day. But other than that, Justin Verlander's back with the Astros. No idea what to expect with Verlander. But sometime in, I don't know, probably after the Super Bowl, like February, March, we're gonna get into our divisions. We're gonna have plenty of guests on. I'm gonna try to have a different guest for every division. For every baseball division. It's gonna be a great time. We had fun doing it last year. I can't wait to do it again this year. If we even have a season, we'll keep you updated. Who knows? It really just depends on when the season starts and when it kind of lines up for us to take 8 weeks off, basically. Yeah.
And then the Blue Jays did extend Barrios. That was a little afterthought kind of deal before everything kind of hit the fan. But 7 years, 131 is going to be a pretty good deal for him in terms of the output.
They have 3 of the best pitchers right now in the league. Yep. Probably like in the maybe top 25. They have 3 in Ryu, Gosman, Barrios. That's good for them. They're a high octane offense, so they just need to keep the runs down.
Yep.
All righty. From the right side, that is it for us. This was just kind of a one-off thing. I'm home for the week, so I figured we'd jump in and try and catch up on some stuff. We'll be back to the NFL on Monday for Week 18 recap and playoff predictions. I have no idea what's going to happen. Football's wild. It continues to be wild. So you can catch us here every Monday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. You can catch us on the Halftime app every Monday night at 7 p.m. Pacific time, talking about Monday Night Football. Kind of. The last few games have been real bad. Real bad. We'll be talking about basketball there consistently pretty soon, so that'll be a lot of fun. It was originally a basketball app. They've implemented the NFL, the UFC, MLB. Yeah.
So it's been really fun there. Probably haven't.
Yeah. Don't forget, if you want to clean up your balls, use TMSM at manscaped.com. Ooh.
20% off, free worldwide shipping, baby. Manscaped.com.
There you go.
Special thanks to them for partnering with us.
Sending us a performance package. We love it.
It's been good for my performance in life. Feel cleaner, feel more confident. You look good, you play good.
Exactly. Alrighty, that is gonna do it for us. Thanks for watching. Devin, you got anything else left?
I got one word. Everybody knows what it's gonna be, so I'm not gonna make you guys wait too long. Peace.